Hello, I'm James Craik. I do author things. Among those author things, aside from the books that you can buy in the description, is I publish a free web novel on a site called Royal Road, which has a shockingly large community. Now, it does skew mostly towards lit RPG. That's kind of what it's known for, as well as people like to talk about the toxic commenters, but I think that's very overblown. I've had a very good experience on Royal Road thus. But it's actually like a phenomenal way for aspiring authors to get started, to get fans, to get an audience, to get feedback on their craft. I genuinely recommend it. I think it's worked out for me, although it's not like I'm a millionaire living off full time off my story Undying Emperor, so I could have succeeded more, but I've learned a lot from it. And today, I've brought on a friend of the channel here, Authors Play. Say hello.
Hello, audience.
Yeah, you know him if you watch my videos, which you should, because you should subscribe. But the two of us are going to be doing a live react to the first chapter of, in this case, Sand and Legends by Akaso, who has also been on the channel, because Akaso's a writing friend of mine. It's not nepotism, I swear. But,
It's not nepotism, it's networking.
yes, I like that. So the thing is that there are a lot of stories on Royal Road because it is fundamentally amateur fiction, even though the most successful stories on Royal Road basically go professional. It has the view of amateurism, right? People pursue it as or perceive it as amateur work because it is. And oftentimes there's a lot of problems, and people might think that the successful story is about gaming the system, about getting people to see it. It's about networks. Oh, you gotta do review swaps, man. I think it's straight up just the quality of the first chapter. That's my hypothesis. And I thought I'd put it to the test by looking into some of the stories by volunteers. And obviously, Akaso. I know Akaso. I've asked them to be my first victim. So we're going to read the first chapter, take a look at it, react to it, share our opinions, and hopefully it's a pretty good one. And by the way, the link will be in the description because maybe you'll like it. You ready for this Author's Play?
I'm always ready.
Which, by the way, so we got the lovely cover. Lovely. Not as good as their most recent work. This is actually Akaso's first story. You do get the warning tags. Ooh, profanity. That's a warning and not like an advertisement?
Hey, hang on, James. If this has got profanity, I don't know if I can take it. My ears are virgin, you know?
Well, it's probably not the gamer words. It's probably just, fucking damn.
What? What? My ears!
I'm sorry, but you had to brace yourself for that. Anyways, you also get, aside from the tags, the titled author, you do have to come in with the blurb, even though I know you think that's not what a blurb is, because you suck off TradPub constantly.
I don't suck off TradPub. I just say that I'd like to give it a shot, which is increasingly more difficult.
So, he woke up in the bowels of his crashed ship. His arms were gone, as were most of his memories. Stumbling out of the cockpit, the skull-faced man could scarcely anticipate just how mythical a living human was in these parts, let alone one with a custom body such as his. Now, right there, that does hit the genre. That does give conflict. That does give character. It does everything that the blurb needs to do. It's a little clunky, though, let's be honest.
I mean, it's a first work. It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I think it serves well enough.
Yeah, but this is honest reactions to everything except the targeted advertisements.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. The only errors it's got are mostly armless anyway, so.
All right, so let's jump into the prologue. And of course, I forgot to mute my phone. Who talks to me?
Well, I can't hear it.
Good. Anyways, prepare yourself for my lovely narrator voice. 0. Prologue. First, the fusion reactor melts down, so we have to rely on the sun and wind for power. I actually don't like that first sentence. Who is we? Don't open a story with a pronouns.
I think that's a bit of a nitpick. You can infer that it's whoever is manning the ship.
Is it
I
a
mean,
ship?
if you've read the blurb, you know that there's a ship that's crashed. The first
The
thing
blurb's a
is
singular character though. Why is there so? If it had said so, I had to rely on the sun. That'd be fine. But we is multiple people. There's someone I don't
yeah,
know. I don't like
it
that.
yeah, and I want to know who they are, so keep reading.
Then the fucking truth seekers not only decide to ignore our protection contract, but raid our food stores themselves. I had to check if that was a comma or a period. Assholes said we could either give them food to feed their diggers, or the workers to replace them once they drop dead of exhaustion. But a nice little bow on top, the morning after the raid, a stranger draped in dusty tatters limped into town, walked into my bar.
Taters.
Yes. I didn't pre-read this, okay? Dusty tatters limped into town, walked into my bar first thing, if word of mouth is anything to go by. Which, by the way, I'm now getting Trigun vibes. Are you?
Yeah, that's actually
Which is
that's
not
a
a
good vibe
bad
to have.
thing.
Although it's not the most original thing, but I'm still pissed off. I had a faction called Truth Seekers in one of my stories, and now I'm going to have to change it. Damn it,
Nah,
Akaso.
everyone can use Truth Seekers.
Really?
Until I trademark it, then. Dusty taters. Guy wore a mask fashioned from a chunk of scrap ceramic. Looked like a rectangular piece of a blade of armor he whittled down. A pair of faint pinkish purple lights in the eye holes. Don't know why he bothered. It's not like anyone gives a shit what you look like this far from the nearest oasis city. He stepped on a loose panel on the floor. Poor guy. Haven't heard that horrible squidging noise in months. I hoped the local warrior caste ruffians would avoid stirring shit for once, but given that the noise startled old Rika, I wasn't too hopeful. I hesitate to call that creature sapient. A little too in tune with her hunter instincts, that one. Oh, am I getting Kakarot vibes? What?
Is that a fucking Fantasy Star reference?
It might be. Still, she pays her tab, so I let her drink in my bar. She'd thrash it if I didn't. I'm pretty sure she could beat an elder in contest of raw strength. Good thing she's centuries from her metamorphosis. Maybe she'll grow a second brain cell to rub together by the time that comes around. Not that it would have helped him if he knew to avoid that specific panel. Rika starts shit with everyone that looks at her weird. Or just looks weird at all. Or even doesn't look right on proper, whatever her lizard brain means by that. Girl.
Guess it's a lizard girl. Well, that's new, you know.
So there I was, ducked behind the bar top with my finger on the blast shield button, watching Rika walk up to that stranger. She moved to grab him by the tattered cloak of his, and he moved out of the way surprisingly quickly. Figured he'd try to fight back, but nah. I'm sorry if I offended you, miss, he pleaded, trying to just walk into the bar. Every time he tried to slip past her, pretty skillfully, might I add, Rika just swiped or grabbed at him. The two spent nearly 2 minutes playing this deadly game of grab ass, and every time she grabbed at him, the violent oath that caused both much of my profits and expenses got closer and closer. That's a mouthful. The stranger wasn't getting tired or slower, she was getting faster. Her tattoos are starting to glow a faint yellow. Oh no. I was just about ready to push the button when she finally grabbed hold of his arm, ready to throw him out of the bar with the force of an angry demigod, or rather, she grabbed his cloak where his arm should have been, only there was no arm. As quickly as he slipped out of her grasp, cloak and all, I still saw what was underneath. All 4 of us in the bar at the time did. His left arm was missing completely. I'm pretty sure the right one was only there down to the elbow. Everything visible of his body looked like it was more metal and polymer than meat. Not that I thought of it, but I wonder why the part of his head not covered by the mask looked more like a helmet than, well, a head. Just wasn't right. Reminded me of one of those freaky scrap statues that the Truth Seekers would build in their camps. The guy just stood there in a low stance with his feet wide and knees buckled, staring up at Rika's towering form, ready to pounce, not to attack, but to try and slip by her once again. Zelru, the thinker-cast geezer that he was, only decades from metamorphosis, spoke up from his little corner of papers and empty Stimmix bottles near the window. Oi, let him go. Can't you see the lad's had enough of a beating from life already? Oil my ass up and roast me on a plas thruster, because that was the 4th time ever I saw Rika actually listen to reason and back off. She trudged back to her table without so much as a word, almost shattering the reinforced chair as her nearly half a ton of muscle fell into it. Meanwhile, Mr. Armless stumbled his way to the bar, just stood there weirdly hunched, looked like he was barely holding his own weight up. That, or dodging Rika, took a toll. Strongest stims you have, please. The guy's little eye lights flickered as he talked. Didn't notice it earlier, but his voice sounded off. Synthesized. Of course it would. I went to reach under the bar to grab a bottle of the strongest Stimmix that I had a decent stock of. Horribly sweet, gooey stuff that nobody but the weirdo off-worlders liked, and those weren't exactly a thriving customer base out here, or anywhere for that matter, not since the Great Isolation. The bottle was a light pink. I could almost smell the fruity flavoring through the polymer. Between it being unpopular and the armless guy being entertaining, I figured I'd just let him take it. It wasn't as if having a single extra bottle of saccharine Stimmix would somehow fix the fusion reactor, or make the truth seekers walk into town and give back all the food they stole.
So this is hitting a lot of buttons that are just right for me because Trigun, Phantasy Star, Outlaw Star vibes, the space western.
Yes, this definitely is giving rundown space western vibes. I'm going to laugh my ass off if Akaso messages me when this goes up and goes, "It's not a western." Because this definitely seems like a space western.
Oh yeah. My main complaint is that last line isn't very compelling, but the atmosphere up until that point was so good that I don't think it would have mattered too much.
So it definitely, basically the entire point of this prologue is to give atmosphere, which is a reasonable thing to do when you're trying to get people into it. Because basically, yeah, this is just slapping the reader with, it's a space western. I've got weird stuff going on. I've got weirdos, truth seekers. I've got breaking down technology. I've got a strange guy with cybernetic parts and all that. I've got magic going on. Don't you want to know what a metamorphosis is? Maybe I want a bit more information than what's being provided, though. Because a bit more clarity at the start would have helped.
I actually have noticed that that's kind of an emerging trend, is that people are veering so hard into show don't tell that there's like not enough of a background. You got to piece it together by yourself a little bit too much. Like I'm trying to figure out a way how to describe it. Just that it is a trope that people want to avoid, the new person thrown into things that's like, truth seeker, what's that? And then have someone say the truth seekers are blah blah blah, or just have the narrator come out and say, like, the truth seekers raided me, blah blah blah. They do that every so often. I hate them for it. But just work in a little more background information to give the reader grounding.
Here's how I think writers should think about it: is you do generally want to, and genuinely want to show not tell.
But you can veer too hard. Like you can.
Yeah, I think I can say exactly how to tell if you've gone too hard, because you have to just tell them precisely enough context that when you say, like, it's the difference between the fusion reactor failed and we had to rely on wind power. That is one piece of information that is vastly different if you're talking about a ship versus talking about a town being threatened by raiders. And you are better off just telling the reader the town's fusion reactor failed last week before the truth seekers came in and stole all of our food.
I actually 100% agree with you. The reason I disagreed the first time is because I thought the idea was to imply that we were starting with the ship. But once we got going and it was clear that's not what was happening, then it kind of got a little confusing for a minute before all the context clues let me know what was going on. And, fair dinkum, I guess, but there's no real reason to, like, do that, Just avoid the headache. Avoid the little annoyance. Tell your reader what's going on.
Yeah, they need to have
immersion is going to piss them off.
They need to have enough grounding that when you say, like, the man turned green, the reader needs to know if you're literally saying his skin turned green because he's an alien chameleon versus he was nauseous.
Right. I got actually a good example of that from a recent beta read of my manuscript. So I got a line saying, like, the hunter turned knife in hand, and just from that, the guy reading it assumed this was like a standard deer hunter in Michigan. So he was vastly confused by the entire rest of the story.
Well, that is why your story does start with your cover art,
Fair enough.
which was total T1000 vibes, or not even T1000. What's the T100
T800.
vibes? 800 is OG stuff.
Yeah, 800 is Arnie. T101 is the giant tank thing that makes a brief appearance in T3.
All right, now while there are there's plenty of promises in this prologue. Now, it's got style, it's got overarching conflict, it's got that Western mysterious stranger shows up at a bar. Two big issues with this is that's a completely arbitrary stopping point for how long the prologue is. There's no reason for that prologue to have stopped there. Then again, I'm assuming Akaso released this correctly, and you can just click the next page button, which this video is going to be long enough. We're not going to chapter 1. Because this is a prologue, read and react. Sorry, I'll update the title. But the problem is, I don't like any of the characters. You can write a story where none of the characters are likable. I don't recommend it. That's something that an author should do after he has an audience that trusts him, or she. None of these characters pass the beer test, which I'm going to start advocating for. Authors should look at their characters and go, would I, as a reader, want to sit down with this character and have a beer with them? I wouldn't want to talk to any of these people. They're all stupid and violent.
That's a good... I'll say this. I don't know enough to make a positive judgment about anyone here yet, so I would be inclined to give it a little bit more of a chance.
Well, yeah, you always can just click to the next page. This was here, easy though,
is like drawing me in character-wise. I guess maybe like the barkeep has that air of, I'm just a barkeep. I serve drinks and I've seen too much.
Okay, what's the big guy's name from Cowboy Bebop? I can't remember.
Jet Black?
Yeah. He's got some vibes like that, but I really need to rewatch Cowboy Bebop. It's been 20 years.
What are you talking about? It only came out a couple years ago.
We're not going through this again. Dude, I am cripplingly old now, and I don't want to talk about that. Okay, now that said, now I could pull up the numbers and basically name and shame Akaso with, okay, so how successful was this actually? But this is not the one that blew up. So even then, because Akaso has a significantly more successful story that they wrote after, because guess what? They wrote this and learned a ton and got better. People from the other book came back and pumped these numbers up, so it doesn't even really make sense. That said, you get a vibe. There are hooks here. Personally,
yeah.
I'd probably jump to Chernocaster based on this. That's just because I know more about the wild crap going on in his other book. And there's a lot to his other book to read. So, what about you?
Well, specifically, because it's a space western, you would have to drop the ball pretty damn hard for me not to give it at least a couple more chapters. So I'm vibing too hard with the general theme to give up on it. But even so, like it's serviceable. I think he could have done more in terms of hooks, but the atmosphere is definitely on point.
Okay, Porky. I think this would have worked better if there had been more of a drawn out stare off between the mask guy and Rika before she tries to grab him. Now you want that nobody in the bar will even take a breath before suddenly it just like explodes. Because I know Akaso can write better combat than this. Then again, that it's learning and development. Maybe at the time he couldn't, whatever. But this would have been a lot better if the quality of the fight had been flexed a bit more.
Well, I want to know what the hell Rika's supposed to be, because I'm rereading what you got on the screen. Because I can't find a description.
Lizard brain, that's all we get, because it's from the perspective of the bartender for whom this is all normal. Which is like that standard advice you get when you just Google writing advice. And that's the problem with it. That's why I don't advise Googling writing advice.
Yeah, nowadays you use X.
Now you gotta pay for that blue check mark so you can get Grok, the basically natively jailbroke ChatGPT.
Jesus. All right. But yeah, like I get that the guy is like, oh, you can still like have an aside where it's like, I don't know, the light reflected off her scales if she's a lizard, her tongue
Yeah,
flicked between
that's another
fangs.
thing.
Do
If there
something.
had been that tense moment, you make that tense and drawn out by describing the characters and how they're posturing against each other, which gives you like the natural point to describe these characters.
Right. Right, but yeah, that's like what I'm saying though. There ain't nothing there.
Yep. So overall, this is a first work from an author that got better. So we're at 20 minutes here for reading a chapter that no one has ever of. So we should probably wrap this up.
All right, fine. I'll hold on to my secret of ultimate prologues for next time then.
Yeah, because we're probably going to ask for more victims after this, if this goes over well. And if you, the viewer, enjoy these kinds of quick dissections and more in-depth looks at stories that you can get for free right now, and the link's in the description below mine.
Is this? He abandoned this one, right? It's not
it's
still
finished.
ongoing.
I'm like 90% certain it's a finished story.
Oh, okay. So it's not a vivisection then. Oh wow, he sure as hell gave it a.
Yeah, this was from 3 years ago. 74
cool, he
chapters.
wrote all that in 1 year. That's nice.
Or released it all in 1 year. Dude, write more. Come on. All right. Like, subscribe, YouTube things. Let me know in the comments below if you thought that was a good prologue. And if I should keep doing this or if I should pivot to React content of more traditional YouTube. Because this was React content shit. See ya.